So I chucked this hat on, and straight away, my first thought when I looked at myself in the on the screen, so that's the camera. That's the computer screen right there, and so hence why I'm not looking directly at the camera right now. And I thought, for those who are familiar with Shane Gillis, I thought, oh yeah, that's a bit of a resemblance. It looks a bit better than, I don't even know, whatever you want to call that. It's like some overweight skinhead. So, dude, I'll be honest, hey, like I am genuinely still not getting used to not having a beard, man. But I tell you what, talk about having motivation to get fit. Yeah, it's there. I'll tell you that for free. So I've started fasting for those who aren't aware already. I don't know if I mentioned that last episode. And yeah, so I'm going to do a 7 day fast where I just drink water or juice. Like I'm cool with that, but real juice, not just like sugar loaded juice. And I may or may not have had a sneaky wine with the wife tonight. You know, tonight is family night with the kids and Beck and stuff. So had a glass of wine with her, which is lovely. But outside of that, yeah. And you know, and because I figure I want to start this off on a, you know, I want to get some runs on the board early. So so I'm down a kilo. So I went from 107.7 down to 106.6. So actually, also less than a kilo. So it was in 2 days. So yeah, yeah. So it's pretty man, fasting. It's what I've learned about fasting, or I guess setting boundaries in any sort of like in any sort of respect like that, is that it's easier to do it 100% than it is to do it 95% or 99%. You know, it's just easier to just to say straight out like I'm not eating any food. You know, and rather than oh I'm only going to eat dinner, I'm going to time my meals like this. Listen, I think if it's with respect to discipline and the other thing I think around this is that I just want to get stuck right into a state of ketosis straight away, and then over the next couple of weeks, go to an all meat diet and just shred for a bit, get down to 85 kilo, and obviously during that time I'm going to start, I want to start introducing more foods back into my diet, and I'm very conscious, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of like criticism whether it's publicly mentioned public or not, but I certainly want to get. I'm conscious that diets usually come and go, and that you end up back where you were before. I genuinely, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm going to get back there. I feel like this is probably the last really glaring part of my life that I've not given adequate attention to, and and already it's so funny, like being disciplined with the food that enters my mouth, and what I mean the lack thereof in this instance. But being disciplined with what enters my mouth, it's funny. I'm already seeing the repercussions on how I'm managing my time and how I'm managing my attention and stuff. So yeah, so that's cool. Family night tonight. I'm just going to jump around a bit hodgepodge. So family night tonight. I always love. We've got this little fire pit out the back, and tonight was the first night that we fired it up. No pun intended there. And it was, the kids made some s'mores, and it was just great, like sitting around the fire and chatting with Beck, and I was reflecting with her on this conversation that I had with a friend of ours. I love this guy. His name's Zach Hawk. Genuinely, I think he is, especially active chefs in Kalgoorlie, he's got to be the best. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not I'm not a chef, and don't get me wrong. There's probably some absolutely exquisite talent in in Kalgoorlie that is below the surface. I've no doubt. 30,000 people. There's got to be someone somewhere. I 100% agree. But when it comes to, man, this man has, his life has been hospitality, and yeah, I have the most respect for him. Hey, so So it was really lovely. I caught up with him and we're talking about like the state around hospitality and kind of how we kind of see things unfolding and the issues that we with the frustrations we've got with it and the issues we have with it and kind of what we see the future of being hospitality and he said and again like I think that professionals in any industry understand the nuances of it really really well, and he was saying how like and I was echoing this to Beck, and again, everything that Beck said, she fully wholeheartedly agreed with. Oh, sorry, everything that Zach said, Beck wholeheartedly agreed with. And one of the things that he said, which I was like, oh, yeah, I think you're right there, is that, gone are the days of the superstar chef. The dining has changed. And gone are the days of the superstar chef where, someone goes and goes to that specific chef because that person went to the other guy or went and lived in some sort of village or whatever and learned a craft that no one else learned, and now you can Google it. And someone goes, and the example he used was like, someone creates an incredible coleslaw dish, or no, sorry, cabbage dish, and it's like, how did you do that with cabbage? And then they just Google it, and it's and the art is lost. And not to say it's lost permanently, but I think that there's certainly a. I remember reading an article years ago, and it was about the state of American education with respect to the incredible high barrier of education, high barrier to entry for education. Meanwhile, a lot of other countries don't have that incredibly high barrier to entry, And one of the things that they talked about was this brain drain that is there, and I see that in WA, maybe not necessarily in Australia, but certainly in WA, and how I see it is like, you got mining, oil and gas, construction, and trades, and they build the proverbial walls that we all get to live in, as a society, and and don't get me wrong, we absolutely need it. We need something to be able to live within, and to be able to provide the structure and the infrastructure to be able to. And I don't mean literally like live within, but I mean from a societal point of view as a metaphor. They create the bones for us to be able to actually like, do the things we want to do and shit like that. But when it comes to like the having the color and in the life and the expression, and like that's art, that's music, that's theater and hospitality and food and wine, and it's the stimulation of the senses, and those are the things, if we're going to use the in a proverbial sense, it's the art on the walls, and it's the decor, and it's the luscious carpet and the paintings that we put up in our houses, proverbial houses. And I think that if we don't give the adequate attention to industries like hospitality and the artists and everything else, then we end up ourselves in like, I can't see it any different to like post-Soviet Russia, where everyone's at this point where you just like, all your primary needs are met, but life is dull. And the thing that I love, I remember when we were in Canada, and my cousin's a chef as well, Ben, incredible guy, man, I love that guy, and he's got a good resume too, and he's a real chef, he's a real chef, and and he was telling me, like, this is back when he was doing his apprenticeship, and he was telling me, he's just like, man, the thing that I love about food is that food tells stories, and food is history, and food is culture, and he's like, you learn the food that people nourish their bodies with as they went to war, and you like, inside food and inside meals is all sorts of history and culture and taste and all these crazy things, and I think that there's, at some point, like if you have a look at, Maslow, and you know what, flag Maslow's, look at Glass's hierarchy of needs, right? For those who aren't familiar, William Glasser, I have a preference toward his hierarchy over Maslow's. Personally, I'm not a psychologist, I don't care, right? It's what makes sense to me more. And you've got your primary, your psychological and physiological needs. That you don't care about anything else if you're being chased by a tiger and you don't have food in your belly, right? So you meet those needs as a society. Then you want to find you want to have a sense of control and the ability to have autonomy. And then above that, then you want to have like love and belonging in a society and a community that you relate to and connect to, and you're seen, and you are seen by people, and you are seen as well. Sorry, and you see others. Then above that, then you want to have fun and play, and above that, then you want to have freedom. They build on top of each other, right? And obviously, you can conflate that over to Maslow's as well. And yes, that there's a level of synergy between the two. I feel like, from what I understand about and what I've learned about people, not being the psychologist or whatever, Glasses seems to make a bit more sense to me. And there's tons of other hierarchies out there as well, but these are probably some of the more common ones. Choice theory, if you want to read into it, choice theory. And so when I think around like hospitality, the skills drain and the brain drain that happens so often is that, people, and you see it all the time, where chefs just are burned out, and they've got a wife and they've got some kids, and it's like everyone ends up being this like there's a word for like a tortured artist. And it's just like, yeah, cool and all, but it's such a shit stereotype. Like, why can't you actually just be a whole, fulfilled human being? And I think, like, ultimately when it comes to it, no one cares about self-expression and experiencing all these things if you can't put a roof over your head. And so naturally what happens is these people, like, hospitality is not a lucrative industry, not in comparison to mining, not in comparison to, electrical and plumbing and boiler making and engineering and all these sorts of things. They're not on the same level. But when you think around, if we're going to use the proverbial house, right? It costs a lot more to build the house and put the roof on it than it does to put the art on the walls, depending on the art, of course, right? But for a generalized sense, the things that make it look pretty inside and make you actually want to be in that house and go, yeah, actually, this is a place I want to be in, and this is an environment I want to enjoy. From a societal standpoint, it's like hospitality isn't. It doesn't hold the same monetary value, but from an emotional standpoint, from an experiential standpoint, like, hospitality is always an experience. And I think about Amuse, for those who are familiar with Perth. Man, hands down, one of the best, if not the best. I'm going to go and say it was the best dining experience I've had. Service, food, just the whole lot, incredible. And the saddest part is, I can't remember the chef's name, but I was like, man, I wonder what he's doing now. And I Googled it, and all he does is just private function dinners. That's it. Because he's just sick of it. He's sick of all this other stuff. And, and the pressure of it. And I read a few articles on it. I was just like, that is so sad. And so anyway, so with Zach, so the question was, it's like, well, how, what is the future of hospitality look like? And what are the issues with it? And I think there's, and this is, and sorry, I don't think this has echoed what he was saying, and I agree. I'm like, oh shit, I see that. Is that there's a lack of skills coming through in the new talent coming, because the talent is dying. And I don't think COVID helped. And again, I can't blame anyone, but even in Melbourne, I know so many people have said, like, we were in Melbourne from 2012 to 2015, and so many people are like, hey man, like, you guys just got in at the right time, because Melbourne is not what it was. So many people just need to pay bills, totally warranted, out of necessity, had to jump ship into other industries and just haven't come back, which is normal, totally understandable. So many skills were lost, and so much of that talent pool was gone permanently. And so it's really interesting, because I don't know what the future of hospitality looks like, not just in WA, but in across the nation. Yeah. Yeah, who knows? So anyway, so he was saying two things. One, the skills coming through. There's a lack of skills, but also there's a lack of customer appreciation. And not to say that people are ungrateful, maybe part of that, but there is definitely an element of people who I think Zach nailed it, where he's like, the wonder is gone, the awe is gone because you can just Google it, and in the information era, in the information age, that that unique experience is really starting to lack. And when I think around like the globalization of so many industries, a lot of the drinks are the same, a lot of the food's the same, a lot of the culture's the same. You got all the major big cities around the world. If you go to New York, you've been to Tokyo. If you, oh, sorry, I don't know actually. If you go to New York, you've been to Sydney, you've been to London, and of course they're going to have their nuances, but fundamentally, it's the same big buildings, it's the same restaurants, it's the same shit. It's not until you go out to the countryside and you go out to the little towns and the smaller cities that you really start to see the nuances of those cultures. And so the globalization of everything, I think, has flattened a lot of people's almost like curiosity, and I'd like to hear the perspective of someone else who actually knows about this subject, and I don't know what sort of profession that would be, but yeah, it's yeah. And I think around like I relate using that metaphor around you got the walls and the roof and everything else, and when you don't have anything that actually brings it to life, what a stale, boring, vapid existence. And when I think around like my relationship with Beck, for the most part, I'm the one that goes out and provides the resources, and again, I've said this before in our podcast, in episodes before, like for the most part, we subscribe to traditional gender roles. Beck looks after the kids and looks after the home, and I go out and oh goodness, sorry, I've not been eating, so I'm getting these nasty burps come up. Very very sorry. Earn the income, but my gosh, she is so creative, and she's got this like, anyone who's done any sort of birthday event with her or any sort of event, she just knows how to create atmosphere, and she does it in our house and in our backyard, and I just, man, prior to being with her and prior to her being like, no, I want this and it's expensive, and not to say she's flippant with our money, she's not at all, but she's very intentional when she goes, I know, yeah, I understand it's going to cost money, and I look back now, I'm so glad we spent the money we did on the backyard, because I want to go out the backyard, I want to be in that environment, I want to be around our house, because she puts colors in her house that I just don't understand, and and I see hospitality from a metaphorical standpoint like that, where it's like all these other industries provide the infrastructure that we all get to live within, but then hospitality and arts and music and cinema and all these sort of things give us the flair, and they give you the sensory experiences that you don't get otherwise, and it's so sad that it's dying, um, and that it's being flattened. Where it's not dying, it's being flattened. Yeah, and I don't know what the answer is. I genuinely, truly do not. Yeah. Anyway, as you can see, it's not a topic I'm passionate about. Um. Anyway, so that was, I caught up with Zach this morning. That's how I started my day. Great, man. I love that guy. I love him, and I have no doubt he will excel in whatever he puts his hand to. God, whatever he puts his hand to, he will excel at. He's got it. So that was cool. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So I actually pause that for a second. I want to dial further back. So after recording last night's episode, Wayne jumped in bed, and Beck said to me, she was feeding Sterling, and she said to me, she was like, was there about that guy that I met up with last night, or yesterday, about the meeting, and it was a bit of a surprise meeting. He said to me, so Beck said to me, she was like, Was there any more that you wanted to tell me? And I said to her, I was like, oh, do you mean in the sense that like you're asking if I'm withholding any information? My answer is no. Is there a lot more that I haven't told you? Yeah, there's heaps to unpack from this conversation. And and like so this guy kept saying to me how like how he feels like it's almost like a time of a time where it's like a stripping back, and those moments are always scary. Hey, they're never fun, because that shit always hurts. And when you have to get more vulnerable, and I was like, okay, I'm not against that. I don't know what it looks like. Do I believe that my life is destined just to be in hospitality? No. But also, here's the thing: is that you know, I think there's something out there. I like to call it God. Other people call it the universe, your higher self, or whatever. But um, I'd say both with the experiences that I've had in life and how I was raised, and the things that I'm familiar with and the terminology that I understand, God seems to make sense to me, and I find myself, not for lack of trying, like I've really read into well, actually a little bit of Hinduism, like Buddhism. Haven't really delved into Islam or anything like that. A lot of like humanist, naturalist spiritualism, um, and and the thing that still makes sense to me is the terminology that I grew up with. So um, that's just what I run with, right? Um, Gosh, I can't remember. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, so the question was like, is there anything else that I wanted to share? And my whole thing is, the doors just kept opening for us whenever when we want to start the business. The doors just kept opening, and just things kept lining up, and I was like, okay. And it's been my experience time and time and time again, and I cannot tell you how many times where I've been this close, and the resources, be it whatever it is, be it resources by way of I need people to work with us in our team, or financial resources, or whatever it is, and they just always come up right at the right time, and it just happens. It consistently happens. And if you think, oh, that's woo woo shit, right? I I challenge you to go read a book by the guy named Felix Dennis called How to Get Rich. The man started Maxim magazine, outspoken atheist, and even in his book, he says the one thing I cannot understand. There must be something out there. I'm paraphrasing a lot. When I see people take a step, the resources come there and meet them, and it happens all the time. And the pragmatic side of us says all the resources are always there, and when you take the leap, then your brain switches on and you go and get it. Correct. Man, I remember this one particular time, the first example that comes off the top of my head. I remember saying to Jethro, I was like, man, I need someone to work tomorrow, otherwise we're going to be completely buggered. And I sat down 5 minutes later, I went to go take a shit, and I was sitting on the toilet, and one of our staff texted me. It was just very out of the ordinary for her. Text me, hey Billy, I'm wondering if I could grab any shifts tomorrow. Do you have anything available? She never does that. And I'm like, within minutes, okay, sure, call it chance. That's fine. But this shit happens all the time. So, so that's where I'm like, part of me, when it goes back to the whole stripping back thing, I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. And and to me, like I've certainly been on this whole journey of surrendering and letting go, and to me, they're synonymous. But not in the sense that you surrender your ambition or desire or drive or anything like that. But it's just surrendering the outcome of your drive and your ambition and what you think the outcome is going to be. Surrendering the idea of what you think that looks like. That to me is what letting go is. So it doesn't mean I sit on my hands and I'm just waiting for like writing on the wall. I'm still active. It's the best way I can explain it is diligent surrender. That's the best way I can explain it. And yeah, so I was chatting, and I was the only thing that I can really think about is I'm certainly someone who is very very big in I'm either going to do it or I'm talking shit. and I either stop talking about it and let that go, or I take action. And when I do, I'm like, all right, let's go, game time. I mean, case in point, right? I got challenged to shave my beard and stop being a fat. Okay, Beck pulled me up on that. I got to stop calling myself fat. Stop being unhealthy, right? So I shaved my beard, and in 2 days I lost a kilo, right? Might not be with the best of means, but I'm doing it, and I don't care what anyone says. You go lose a kilo in a day then. And if you do, fantastic. Welcome to the club. Fucking sweet. We're buddies. Anyone else who's like, you're doing it the wrong way, then go pick another way. I don't care. So, or maybe I do. Maybe I'm getting too defensive. Whatever. Yeah. God, man, I'm doing terrible with keeping my train of thought, hey? Gosh. Give me a second. Yeah. Anyway, it's gone. My whole thing is either I'm going to do it or I'm not. That's where I was. And when I think around surrendering, I believe there's a God out there, or the universe, or whatever. Like, I just call it God, and it seems to work, right? And the amount of times I've wanted to surrender, but to me, I'm like, surrendering genuinely is surrendering the total outcome of whatever my life could look like. And the biggest issue that I have is Job. For those that are familiar with Job, I'm going to paraphrase this a lot. Beck did challenge me to, for those who are familiar in the religious circles, Bema podcast, absolutely phenomenal. Will break down the Bible in a way you've never understood it before. Phenomenal. She said, she was like, have you listened to Bema about Job? And I was like, no, to your credit, I haven't. I should. And long story short, for those who aren't familiar, if I remember rightly, I think it's Satan goes to God and says, hey, how loyal are your boys? And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, right? Because devil's not there. And be like, yeah, the boys. God and God goes, yeah, gang, like, we're good. And he goes, yeah, what about that guy though? And God's like, yeah, you can test him. And he's like, all right, sweet. What are the rules? And long story short, he keeps whittling this guy Job down to the point that he loses everything he worked for. To be honest, if that's God's will, sweet, that's cool. If I lose everything, whatever. I've learned that, like, my primary needs, even in Australia, worst case scenario, I gotta get on Centrelink. Like, it's not, we're good. If I was in the middle of the slums of Mumbai, I might be shitting bricks a lot, but I'm not. So, really, worst case scenario is still really good in the grand scheme of things. And it's really, really easy for me to say that. I'm very conscious from a very privileged position where I own a business, and I totally get that. I understand that it's a very privileged position. But I've also had the privilege of really being able to understand, go, okay, those are my needs, and kind of really start to understand my own psychology, and how even things like stoicism, super crazy, wildly valuable skill and way to look at the world. Anyway, park that. Job loses his livestock, his business, his money. Then he loses his house, and he's destitute. Then his kids get killed, one after the other, freak accidents, right? Then I don't know if his missus dies or his missus leaves him. I can't remember exactly what happens there. Then his health and all of that. And you know what? Like, if I was to lose everything, or like, if my health was to suffer in my current place right now as I stand, I would probably say I think I'd be good, right? My issue, my gripe, is my children being pawns in the game of God proving his might. And I don't know if I actually touched on this. Did I touch on this yesterday? Might have touched on that yesterday. That's the thing I struggle to let go of the most. Is that if I genuinely say, hey, God, universe, whatever, I genuinely surrender. Michael Singer, I know I touched on it yesterday. Michael Singer has got to be the Michael A. Singer, Alan Singer, I think his name. Incredible story where he literally just said yes to whatever life put in front of him and was diligent in it. And he didn't care about what happened. He was just diligent, and his story is just freakish. The man is still alive. It is incredible. And that's all well and good. But I just can't see the morality in surrendering the outcome of my children's, I want to say wellness, that's not right. My children's lives. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the right word is. But like the sum, whatever the word is for the sum total of who they are, their health, their ambitions, their drive, their goals, their life, all that sort of shit. I just don't. I don't see the ethics in that. I don't see. Yeah. And part of it is I just go like, as a man, as their father, as the, at least in my relationship with my family and Beck, is that I am the leader of the house, and we both agree on that, and it's expressed in our lives as well. Being in that position, I big part of my role is to actually be there and protect and to guide and to just offer them up on the chopping block of me having like a more fulfilled life. I just I don't get it. And I don't know if that's the surrender thing. I don't know if that's the part, but I feel it. I was last week, I was saying to Beck, I was like, babe, this whole thing around surrendering and letting go, and I'm getting better at it. But I literally said to her, literally within the last 7 days. So this is where I find it really interesting. This other guy said touched on it. He's like, I feel like there's this act of surrender and letting go and stripping back that needs to happen. And I was like, righto. And I said to Beck, I was like, I feel like we've been learning to how to surrender and let go, but there's been nothing I've actually had to surrender. Like I've never had to surrender I've not had to surrender the outcome of like foreclosure on a house, or the loss of the business, or the ill health of a child, or the loss of a child, or the loss of a partner, or anything significant. And I'm not trying to like make a self-fulfilling prophecy here or anything like that. But I've never actually had to surrender the outcome of anything big yet. Yeah, I don't know. I'll keep you up to date. I want to read up on Job, and I want to read up on Moses. Yeah, I'll let you know how I go with that. Anyway, this is a very long episode. I'm very sorry. So that was my conversation with Beck last night, after I did last night's episode, and then obviously my conversation with Jack around the whole Zach, sorry, around the whole hospitality scene and everything else, and so yeah, so just generally today, just going to quickly review today. I think one of the things I want to ask myself on the regular is, how did I get my dopamine? And we all chase dopamine. It's a human thing, right? Our brains produce it because we're crackheads for it. And the thing that I want to be very conscious of is where I'm getting it from. Am I getting it from my time spent and building a relationship and connection with the people I love? Or am I getting it like a crackhead from social media? And here's the other thing I'm conscious of: our food, our movies, our music, our drinks, our social media, our media, everything else. It just they've all learned how to just hijack dopamine, and no wonder we're all fucked because of that, right? So one of the things I keep thinking around is like, where did I get my dopamine today? And I think I could have done better for sure. There were a few times I got distracted, and I just find myself like it'll just be moments where like I have this like, and this is the thing I think I mentioned a couple nights ago. is that after coming back to Cal, it's like it's so hard, all the familiarity, and you go spend a week away in the bush where there's no triggers and you don't have that. And I come back and straight away all the familiarity, all the things that used to I'd sit down on my computer to do some work and I'd get distracted with social media and to try and like actively push that away, man, it's been a real effort. And I feel that as well. So I would say I know for certain I could have done better. Am I getting better? I do. Yes, I am. I know I am. And that feels good to say. And do I think it's in correlation with the fact that I'm being disciplined with what I put in my mouth? I feel more disciplined and I feel strong. So who knows, but we'll see. Yeah, so one thing I was aware of is that after speaking with this bloke last night, or yesterday, Arvo, was that I certainly want to be more fun with the kids. One of the things that he talked about, he's got kids that are grown up now, and just how much fun that they had. And I just think like, man, goes back to what I remember my mum was saying, is that you got to love your kids, but you really have to enjoy your kids too. And sometimes love is hard, but man, enjoyment, you can always enjoy your children. And I think that was, after seeing the outcome, I know the outcome of his kids. I think they've got great character, and and hardworking and diligent, and he's him and his wife have set an incredible foundation. So from there, and he just had so much fun and freedom and empowered his kids. And I was telling him, I was like, hey, like Beck and I've started doing this thing where we brag about our kids at night, and it's so fun. We do it just within earshot, and it's fun. It's fun for us because we know that they're listening, and that they get to hear us brag about them. Man, like talk about, that's so cool. I love that. So yeah, so that's cool. So I shaved this morning. It was my second day, and I butchered myself. I don't know if you can see. Nah, not really. So I've got like a face scrub and a moisturizer and all sorts of shit I never thought I'd ever have to do in my entire life. But if I don't, my entire face just flakes. It's crazy. So I'm learning how to actually use a razor again. Uploaded all these podcasts this morning, all the episodes from while I trip away, and got blocked on Facebook, which was a bit of an interesting experience. Literally, I was just like, no, review that. That's ridiculous. And it's like within, I think, 15 minutes, they had unblocked it and stuff. Went up and caught up with Zach, and I touched on that. That was really great. So we went to Sterling's been struggling to look a certain way, so we've been going and seeing this chick. We've got a meeting with a chiro tomorrow as well. Tanya from Goldfields Revitalize has been giving him a bit of a stretch in that, and he slept for like 3 hours after that. Went down at 11, woke up at 3:30, and 2:30. Slept for 3.5 hours. Crazy. And so that's where we're like, all right, there's something here. So, okay, so I know I said last night I was going to go sign up at the gym. I haven't signed up, but not because I'm avoiding the gym, right? I still haven't put food in my mouth. I'm about this. All right, I'm not trying to avoid it. I did look across the park and I was thinking about, all the other costs and stuff that we've got at the moment. I'm like, I don't know if I actually need the gym. And I reflected when I was in my mid-teens, we would just go to the park and work out. And I was thinking around, for the most part, you got your biceps back. I've got a bench with weights and chains, and so I've got I've got my pull movements across the road. I can do dips on the monkey bars. I've got the weights, the push pull, the push movements. Could probably do a few pull movements. I'm going to leave deadlifts for a bit because I just butcher my back every time I do it, and not in a good way. So that's where I'm like, okay, I don't really need to go subscribe to a membership yet, and it's just an additional cost, so I'm going to park that. Maybe we'll go. Beck and I talked about, we took all our photos off our wall and we kind of rejigged that. Caught up with Kaata today for the first time in a few weeks because obviously we were away, and she was crook for the last little while, so it felt like it had been ages, and it was really, really great to catch up with her and just touch on the business. And I was sharing with her about like the same sort of things and a lot of the same topics that I had with Zach, and sharing her about, that we're developing the app, and that's doing really well, and showing her the functionality around that, and she was really excited about that. And so it was cool that she could see the structure and the improvements we wanted to make there. But then also, I I don't know. I think I might have mentioned it yesterday, but I want to run our business open book management, where everybody in our team understands all our financials, and it might shoot me in the foot. But as well, I think with respect to hospitality, like, if we're posting like $500,000 net profit, right? And then I'm paying someone, let's just say they're only working the weekends, and I'm only paying them like, 30 grand a year or 20 grand a year or whatever. So how do I justify that? How do I justify making $500,000 not working in the business because of this person I'm only paying like, a couple tens of grand a year? And I think that it has to be accountable. Don't get me wrong. I did sell my house. I would like another house. I have worked months and months on end. I have done the 18-hour days. I've done the heart palpitations. I've done the fatigue and the sickness where your body gives up. I've done it. I get it. I don't know anyone else in my team that's done that. So, not to say there's a level of entitlement, but most of the time, whenever you talk to a business owner, that's the thing. Is like, I've put all this work in. Yeah, totally. I fully agree. And this is a whole nother conversation, actually. I'm going to have to save this for another day because this is already dragging on. I think I'm going to run my business open book management. And for the most part, I just go, if I genuinely want the hospitality scene to improve and to have a part in that, hospitality is not a lucrative industry unless you're at the top. And even then, you better be smart. So I was actually on the phone to the Fair Work Ombudsman, because I was speaking with a mate of ours who was like, hey man, I would just clarify, because obviously I would like to go, okay, you know what? Here's our projected profit. This is going to be bonuses. We need to make this much profit for us to actually pay our bills and pay our debts and all that sort of shit. Sorry. This is going to be distributed among the team for or this portion of thereafter is going to be distributed among the team. What that portion is, I haven't quite worked it out yet, because I've got shareholders that I'm answerable to. I've got loans that we have to pay back, which comes out of profit, and all these sorts of things. And I'm conscious that I don't want to shoot myself in the foot and promise something and then not deliver on it. I would very, very much struggle with that. So that's where I'm curious about how to do that. I've got a call with someone later next week about that. So all they do is they implement this strategy across people's businesses. So I'm curious to see, at least. Anyway, chatting with Kaata, and I was like, I build all these structures and systems and everything else, and then no one uses them because no one cares. And rightly so. I totally get that, because they don't see the value in it. But when you're able to see the bottom line and how, not you're able to see how, when you're rough with something and we have to replace it, we have to pay for maintenance, how it comes a part of the operational expenses. And let's just say that, in the next financial year, let's just say that we net, we're going to net 200 grand. Let's just say that. And what if we could push that up to 400 grand? We still get our 200, and and again, okay, maybe not. Now I think about the maths. Anyone who, and I'm cautious about this, because I don't want to promise I'm going to split it down the guts, because anyone who's in business understands that it's a lot more nuanced than just cutting it down the guts, because it's never like that. Even for nothing else, understand this. If for those who don't know, debt is profit that has been taken from the future and brought into the present. You have to pay loans back with profit. That's the best way I can explain it. Is that you're betting on your future profits. That's what a loan is. And And people see, like, so for instance, like, we might profit, 100 grand, but if I've got 100 grand in debt, well, guess what? Then I actually have to pay tax out of that too, by the way. So I declare the 100 grand versus of loans repayments, and then I actually have to take a 25% on top of that because it's company tax rate. So I have to earn $125,000 just to be able to meet the tax obligation and pay the loan back before there's a single cent that's available for me to spend. It's never what it seems. And so I'm cautious to say that that's the structure we're going to use. My point being, I could have like a soulless team who just feel like, they're working for the man and all that sort of thing. Or I could be like, man, I could actually give people really, really good income and have a model that works and people who are motivated and are excited to come to work because they get it and they see their impact in the overall. That excites me. And if we actually want hospitality to be what I think hospitality could be, I don't see another way. I really don't. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, family night tonight. So we went to Bunnings with the family. Got some little plants, and Beck tidied up the garden, planted a whole heap of flowers in there. This is what I'm talking about, man. Talk about atmosphere. You don't reckon in a few months we're going to want to be out there and all these beautiful flowers all the time? She's a weapon. I love that woman. Eliza, so sweet. I was making dinner for everyone, and Beck rolled out this little rug and put Sterling down, and Eliza just like kind of came up right next to him, and she's 2, and she just got this like she kept putting the dummy in his mouth, so he was happy, and snuggled up right next to him, and just like staring, like his face is like right here, and she's just like staring right at his face, and just like just patting him, and it's these moments, hey, where I just go, God, I just want to capture that forever and keep that, and my memory will probably fade me, and this is why I love doing this. There's this memory Beck and I have of Tilly. We were in our previous house, the one that we sold, and Lexi was just losing it. She was screaming, crying. Tilly must have been about 1, and we just couldn't console her. And then we turned around, and Tilly was gone. We couldn't work it out. She was maybe 15 months old, and we turned back around, and because we're trying to like work out, what was it that upset her, and Tilly had grabbed Lexi's teddy, held it. So she left the bedroom, went into our bedroom, which was next door, grabbed the teddy in her mouth, and then crawled back. And Beck and I remember we turned around and we looked and we saw her, and we were just like, God. And it just, even now, I love it. I love my kids. And it's just, I feel so sorry for the dads that just don't want anything to do with, and I hear this where they just go, I don't want anything to do with my kids until they're 2 because they're just potatoes, and they're not. They're not. Hey, they understand shit. And yeah, anyway, we watched Tilly crawl back in with Lexi's teddy, and we both looked and we saw it, and we turned back to each other and we just went, no way. Yeah, even at like 15 months, that she was able to understand emotion, but then understand that for her, because she can only see out her lens, that for her to be able to, the thing that she finds comfort in is this object. And so she went and found the object that her sister would find comfort in and went and brought that to her at 15 months old is like crazy. Kids are so smart. I love it. Yeah, anyway, so cooked marshmallows out by the fire, got that fired up and stuff, and then made the best s'mores. Not that I know, because I didn't eat any, but I made one for Beck, and it was absolutely incredible. So I can't remember the biscuits, but they're like chocolate coated on one side, and doubled up on the marshmallows. And Beck said it was the best s'more she's ever had. And coming from a chef of Beck's caliber, that means I did well. Yeah, boy. Eliza was just sitting in the chair, ramming these marshmallows in her mouth. Bex was like, "Hey, give me the packet." She's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, after that, kids had a shower, chucked a little movie on. They watched about half hour of it, and they can finish it tomorrow. And I had this really cool conversation with Beck because she wanted to have a bath. So I was chatting with her, and this is when I feel like I'm doing things right. I've got a firm belief. I don't get to decide if I'm a good boss. I don't get to decide if I'm a good husband. I don't get to decide if I'm a good dad. I can use my wisdom to make a hard decision that someone might disagree with, but they better, in the future, they better be like, yeah, that was the right call. But I don't get to decide if I'm doing the right thing or not. Or not if I'm doing the right thing. I don't get to decide if I'm serving Beck right. You know, I don't have a love languages. I'm not my children. And I think the best thing you can do is make the most educated decision you can, but you best go look for your education. You know, you best go learn. And it's these moments where I feel really proud of myself because I was talking with Beck and she was in the shower and she was just saying to me, she's like, man, you know, babe, I'm so grateful for you and I'm so grateful of for who you are and everything you do for us and I don't care if I sound like I'm gloating, by the way. Um, even Zach said, he was just like, if there's one thing I know about you, you don't mince your words, and I don't, and it's got me in trouble, and it probably will, and no doubt it will. But I mean what I say, and I know that I'm not going to have to go back and change my story. And Beck, she said to me, she was just like, I'm so grateful for you know what you do for our family and who you are, and even as a man, just gosh, the how could I not want to give that woman everything? How could I not? And she says to me like, you know, she's like, you know, I speak to my friends and my friends are like, oh, I'd love to have more kids, or you know, oh, that's right, oh, I could never have 4 kids. And she was saying to me, she's like, and I look at what their husbands do, and I look at what their partners and how little their partners are involved, and she goes, of course you could never have 4 kids. Like, look at it, you know, and and not to say that I gain any sort of sense of self. Well, maybe a little bit. Yeah, maybe I'm talking shit there. I do pride myself in how I show up for my wife. I do take a lot of pride in how present I am for her. And I know that if I look after Beck as best I can, that my kids are looked after. And that if I serve Beck and I give to her everything I can, and I be as present as I can, and I love her moment to moment for whatever she needs at the time, that my children are looked after. I don't have to worry about my. It doesn't mean I neglect my kids at all. Absolutely, there's an absolute need for a father's involvement, yes, but I know that if I serve Beck, that my children's needs are met as a byproduct of that. And and my caveat to that is that I understand the masculine role in raising children is absolutely necessary. I am not refuting that whatsoever. But as a primary thing, I think what is the best example I could ever give to my children is to love and love and love and love and love their mother. And it's not a show, and I do, and I love her. And I love that woman so, so deeply. And talk about security and talk about like kids having stability. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, like I think I'm talking shit actually. If I don't have a level of comparison against um other men, I sound like a cocky piece of shit for saying this. Maybe not. I don't know. But I look at just how some men show up in their families, and I'm just go like, maybe Beck has just been more vocal in our relationship. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe these other women aren't as vocal. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm genuinely speculating on this because I remember so many times in our relationship where I would drop the ball or come up short or just be lazy in general, and Beck would drive her heels into the ground and just stand her ground and just say, no, like, I need you to do this. I need this from you, and rah rah rah. And I would just be frustrated and what. But in hindsight, I look back and I am so grateful that she is a dog-headed, just drives her heels into the ground and will not move, and you cannot make that woman move if she does not want to. And I love that about her, because there is no way, I'm not convinced that I would have risen to the occasion had she not been like that. So I say that, perhaps there's other women who don't have that same level of doggedness in them. And maybe there's not been that forcing function for their partners to have to rise to the occasion. And maybe there is that, and maybe their partners refuse to rise to the occasion. And I don't know, like, obviously every relationship is so complex, but I look at I look at the love and the life and the intimacy that we have, and I love that. And I look at a lot of other couples and I don't see that. And I also don't see the men showing up how I do. And that's not to say I'm any better. And that's the thing that I want to get across. I have pride in that. I have pride in how I show up with my wife. And I don't see it in a lot of places. Not to say I don't see it, but I don't see it in a lot of places. And I know I'm doing it right when she says to me, like, I can't make this shit up. Where she cups my face, where, like, I'm already out of the shower, and she pulls me into the shower and she cups my face. She holds me and she kisses me and she goes, I love you. And I'm like, I've won. I've won the lotto. I'm done. Like, I've won the lotto. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. I could lose everything and I would be, I have everything I need. And maybe not. Maybe I'm talking shit. Maybe I would lose everything and just, maybe I would top myself. Who knows? That's very morbid. Sorry to go there. Yeah. Anyway, really quickly, I'm going to wrap this up fast. There was this really cool thing I heard this couple talking about, is they do feast night, and I really like this. It was with respect to their family in their youth, is they didn't want their kids out in the street on the weekends. So what they did was they made an active effort, this couple, where they would do feast night. And so they would spend all Saturday cooking up the most wild feasts, and every single weekend they had their kids, their teen kids, and all their mates come around, like 20 people around a table, have a monster feast, and everyone loved it. And their kids never got into all the shit that people regret. I thought that was incredible. It's something that I would like to do. Lastly, this is cool. This was heartwarming. I got this message from this guy that I used to work with, and I just want to read it. Oh, come on, hurry up. Yeah, this was really heartwarming for me. And he said, "Hey dude, hope you and the fam have been well. I just listened to your most recent podcast and man, well done. The fact you have shaven off your beard to make yourself accountable for the way you look is very inspiring. I'm loving your podcast, man. I look forward to that chiseled chin." And this is a guy that I used to work with just way back when, and that was heartwarming. To obviously, like, I get a lot of value out of this. Who knows if my kids are ever going to listen to this, but to hear that, like 15 episodes in, 15 days in, or whatever, and already people that I know are kind of getting value out of it, I was like, oh, that's cool. So, yeah. Anyway, that's that. I'm done for tonight. I'm going to go see my wife. Love you guys. Bye.